Welcome to our program on the initiative of members of European Parliament from the European People's Party EPP Group, Committee of Regional Development. We are in the Voxbox studio in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. A warm welcome to our guests and hosts in the open studio to Andrey Novakov, MEP from Bulgaria, and he's also spokesperson of the EPP Group in the REGI Committee. Welcome also to Gabriella Gerzsenyi from Hungary, Vice Chair of the Regional Development Committee, and to Pascal Arimont, MEP from Belgium, our specialist not only for Interreg but other REGI issues as well. Welcome. The purpose of our program is to enhance communication about Restore proposal and issues and politics connected with cohesion policy in general. We also want to address the challenges and topics ahead of us, bearing in mind EU projects. We want to engage the citizen and get their attention on the future of cohesion in rural and urban areas, not to forget that we just started the mandate of the new European Commission, and in June we had the last European elections. So thank you for joining us. Andrey Novakov, in the last plenary session of 2024, the European Parliament in Strasbourg had the Restore proposal on the agenda. Tell us a little bit more, what is it about, and moreover, what did the EPP Group achieve in REGI Committee in the last 6 months, and what are you especially proud of?
Well, let me start with this, that at the end of the year, it's time to calculate and analyze how good we perform and where we can go better. In 6 out of 6 plenaries, we have prime time. We achieved to have topics or debates or resolutions, votes, which I don't remember last time that happened. The second thing that I'm proud of is that EPP REGI team was involved to navigate in very deep waters for the hearings for the first ever vice president responsible for cohesion, and I think we managed well. And finally, Restore, it's a record when it comes to time, because never happened before for 30 days to adopt a legislation in which is allowing 18 billion euros to be on disposal for the member states who suffered from a natural disaster. So EPP managed to shorten the time, which was crucial here, and to make a flexible legislation which is allowing member states immediately to benefit from the EU funds and to recover with 100% co-financement from their operational programs.
Thank you. With us is Gabriella Gerzsenyi. We heard the details about Restore proposal. What are your first impressions and conclusions on the work of the EPP REGI MEPs since the elections, and what are your messages from the resolution on floods, for example, or on other topics in REGI in the last 6 months? There are almost 50% of new MEPs in the European Parliament and in the REGI Committee. So what is your main issue in the parliamentary work in this mandate, in this committee, and how do citizens in your country see cohesion and its importance for the future? And also when you look back, the last 6 months in REGI Committee, what is, in your opinion, how is it going?
Thank you very much. It was quite a long question. I will try to answer in a brief way, but address all the issues that you mentioned. I thank you also for the possibility. And as you mentioned, there are 50% MEPs newly elected currently in the parliament, so I'm one of them. And because of this, I would just very shortly introduce myself. So coming from Hungary, from a very new, brand new opposition party, which is less than 1 year old. And now we are gaining more and more support from people. And we are heading with high hope and expectations the national parliamentary elections, which are due in April 2026. The problem is, the biggest problem in Hungary, without being too dark, but I cannot avoid mentioning this because it's a kind of very dark shadow above the country, and when we come to talking about regional development and cohesion policy and whatever European policy, we cannot forget about that the rule of law conditions are not fulfilled by Hungary, and currently more than 6 billion euros are frozen, which would be due to the country. My experience here in the parliament is, irrespective of this fact, quite nice, I must say. I'm not so new to the Brussels bubble because I previously spent 16 years already in Brussels working at DG Environment in the European Commission, having a bit of experience also in regional policy and cohesion funding because I was responsible for the environmental assessment of Hungarian investment projects. So what I see as main basically issues and main first personal impressions, that we had a very warm welcome, the whole delegation of this Tisza party. Tisza is, by the way, the name of the second biggest river in Hungary. So also we are concerned by the floods by the at the Danube, where we had the biggest flooding event this September this year. But also on the Tisza River, we quite often have floods. I personally live on an island in the middle of the Danube. So now in September, I personally experienced how it looks when you have the water coming from both directions. And then I also realized how important it is to have the funding possibilities. Also, that was my support going for the Restore proposal. And also the strengths of the local communities when people are working together on the top of the dam with filling the sandbags and stuff like that. And it coincided with my very first speech at the plenary in mid-September when we had the flooding event in Hungary, and I delivered a speech in particular on that topic.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. With us is also Pascal Arimont, MEP with a long parliamentary experience. What is your opinion on the current state of work in this REGI committee regarding cohesion, financing all the projects you were also working on the last years, like Interreg and others? What are the achievements from your perspective in the REGI committee? What can we remember our listeners and viewers again? What are the achievements?
Yeah, to explain a little bit what I'm doing in REGI committee is to tell the story where I'm coming from. So I live in Belgium in a region where we live at 3 borders, and the 3 borders are at 10 kilometers from my hometown. So my family, we live in one country, we work in another country, we go shopping in a third country, and we go to hospital in the next country. So this is my daily life. This is what makes me proud about the European idea, because it works. And that's why I think that the REGI committee is at a crucial point, because we have to defend cohesion policy. This is what is at stake. We have a new commissioner, vice president of the commission. This is good, but we have to defend the way we do cohesion policy for the next 5 years. We could do and make some modifications at some programs, no problem at all. But cohesion policy means it's policy done by regional or local authorities. This is quite important, and it is not the capitals of Europe that will only decide on how the money is spent. In my view, I'm a big supporter of cross-border collaboration. That's why I'm so happy that I could negotiate the Interreg program. Interreg program is that one where projects are co-financed, where people from at least 3 countries work together. And I was so happy to do that negotiations, because I could define each and every word, each and every sentence in this program. It has now been done. It is now being implemented by the member states, and it's always a big success story, because the projects are so beautiful, because it's an absolutely added value to national policies when people from different countries work actively on one project together. They have all the same problems, but doing it together, it's added value of the European ID. That's why I'm fighting for it. I was angry that the Commission and the Member States took a little bit of money out of the program. I was convinced, and I'm still convinced that we have to give more money for those projects because all the projects are good. And that's why I will fight for this program in the next period. You know, 30% of all Europeans live at a border. 30% have to live and to work together. With such a program, we could learn people how to do it better, how to do it easier, how to cross borders in order to acknowledge that at the other side of the border, people are like we, like me, like you. And we have to work together if we want to get the European Union stronger together. This is because that Interreg program is so symbolic for the European Union, and we have to defend it with all what we have.
We are very happy to have you as a fighter and defender of cohesion policy and Interreg and cross-border. But however, the way Brussels has been communicating on Europe is often outdated also on cohesion policy. However, thousands of projects are successful. Nevertheless, few remain in the memory of our citizens. 6 years ago, we had initiatives aiming to take action against the lack of visibility here in the European Parliament. What is your strategy to bring this across to the citizens? How can we bring projects funded with EU money closer to the awareness of EU citizens and present these projects as added value of the EU, especially nowadays when we are fighting for every single euro for cohesion? Mr. Novakov.
Well, I wouldn't say that the way Brussels is communicating about cohesion policy is outdated. It's boring. This is the correct term. And there is no wonder why when someone using TikTok, for instance, could say whatever he or she wants, only in very understandable way, and you get millions of supporters and then voters. So what we have to change is not only simplify our procedures, but speak human, normal way. First example about this. At the moment, the current absorption rate is dreadful. It's like, I don't remember last time, 4 years into the programming period, to have 20, 30%. That never happened before. And the payments, about 6%, it's beyond imagination. So something is going wrong. And of course, cohesion policy is the usual suspect when it comes to financing new initiatives. And at the beginning, I was very angry towards the Commission. Why are you using cohesion policy so often to finance something new? And then I realized, because nobody is using cohesion policy and the money are just available. So we have to be better. And by we, I mean by putting myself first. I have to explain better in Bulgaria why you can use EU funds for so many things. And if you don't do it, then it's nobody's fault. Use it or lose it. This is the way the funds are working. So our biggest task here is to encourage member states to use their funds in order to preserve that policy in the future. Because Pascal is right.
Always.
And most of the time, but especially today. This is the beauty of the European Union. Living in one country, working in the second one, go to the grocery store in the third one. We are about to experience this in Bulgaria and Romania because we are entering Schengen.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congrats.
Next week. And being allowed to travel is one thing, but the second one, you need a bridge over Danube to go to this country. You need another highway between Hungary and Romania to travel freely, to let the trucks flow. So the only solution for me is EU funds. And here, as a REGI team, we have a crucial role to keep traveling, to keep showing the good examples and exchange a good practice which can allow more and more municipalities, NGOs, universities, young farmers and students to benefit from the European funds for European programs, because this is the only way to preserve our way of life. Otherwise, somebody else will say, no problem, I can finance bridges, I can finance whatever you like. We see this in Africa. Some third countries are investing a lot, and they're monetizing later on their political influence in the place. I don't want to see this in Europe.
Thank you, Mr. Novakov, for this broad approach. Would you like to add something, your impressions, this visibility, what can be done more?
Yeah.
Mrs. Gerzsenyi.
Absolutely. I cannot but agree with Andrey that we have to bring Brussels and the EU closer to citizens. I think it's crucial that we have awareness raising. We have to sensibilize people towards the EU, towards the policies, towards the work what we do in Brussels. And in Hungary, again, the situation is super difficult because there is this double standard in communication. For some people, the EU is something good, something positive from which we can have a lot of benefits, for instance, the monies, provided that they come. But also, according to the government and according to the propaganda, Brussels and the EU is the evil, and everything which is bad comes from them, and we will lose our sovereignty, we will lose our national identity, and Brussels just will have influence on the country. So for us, Andrey mentioned TikTok, not so much now, not yet maybe TikTok, but any kind of social media, mostly Facebook, or now we have a separate YouTube channel for the party where we put videos. We have regular meetings here in the Voxbox with my colleagues in the delegation. We have little summaries of every week, also in Brussels, 20, 25 minutes when talking to people, talking to the camera, just like we do now. These are quite popular. And also, just to mention that how young people are important and how important it is to engage them more, because they are still much more open. Also, we can see it amongst the followers of our party. They are way well represented and much more represented than the elderly. And when I moved home to Hungary and settled in my family in 2021, I was going quite often to secondary schools and to universities. At the first, it was the Back to School initiative from the Commission, but then I just continued with career orientation presentations to talk to youngsters, to explain how the EU works, different institutions, policies, to make them a little bit of appetite and also to increase their interest, to look for projects in their neighborhood, possibilities for a scholarship, for young entrepreneurs, possibilities for applications.
Thank you, Mrs. Gerzsenyi, for these concrete examples, how to raise the visibility. Belgium is the heart of Europe, all the institutions. How high is the awareness of the people, of the young ones? Of course, everybody knows Brussels and Strasbourg are the capital of Europe, but how does your campaign look like to bring Europe closer to your neighbors, to your citizens? Mr. Arimont.
Yeah, I'm now a member of this parliament for 10 years. And since 10 years, I visit each and every week a company, a school, an association, a project co-financed by Interreg or by Cohesion programs. And I explain to my people in my constituency what Europe does concretely. And this is what we have to do. We have to be the influencer of cohesion. We are perhaps not so sexy, Gabriella, yes, but perhaps Andrey and me are not so sexy to become an influencer in TikTok, but we should play the same role. We have to go to the projects with the newspaper, with the radio station. In Hungary, it's perhaps a little bit more difficult than in Belgium. And then explain to those media what Europe is doing concretely. Robert Schuman said once that Europe will be created by things that will be done, not by things that will be said. And that's why Europe is doing so many things that are concrete in the daily life of people living in my constituency that I meet them to explain it and to explain it to the media. This is hard work. But when we do not do this, who will do it? So that's why we have to become those influencer the European Union needed. And I'm really convinced that if you explain to people what the European Union or cohesion policy in concrete is doing, they all agree that this is a good thing. If we say nothing, they have the influences from everywhere that the European bubble is too big, too complicated, too expensive. But this is an opinion. We have to cut this opinion and go into the concrete things that we are doing. And sometimes it's so easy to explain what we are doing. You know, here in Strasbourg, I live in a small town on the German side. And I go each and every day over the bridge that is co-financed by cohesion policy. So if I tell people what I'm doing in the European Parliament, I could say I co-finance this bridge. And this is a beautiful project to explain what the European Union is doing. Bridge over the Danube could be done by European money.
Thank you very much for reminding us. This is very important what you said, to remind your colleagues and to remind our citizens. Andrey Novakov, in Bulgaria, you never stopped explaining to your citizens that Europe makes life of European citizens simpler and safer. There are many examples of that. However, since Europe's achievements are everywhere, they have become taken for granted and almost unnoticed. And today, inflation, war in Europe, an unstable geopolitical situation, energy crisis, continuous rise of Eurosceptic populists, open anti-EU approach, the unpredictability of the second term of the US President-elect Donald Trump. We all are here and we hear about the past couple of weeks and months. So good news are seldomly in the news, out of sight, out of mind, but even through Europe, Europe had offered a lot and still has so many good things to offer. And Mr. Arimont was just saying this. We have to repeat this again and again. So what is your approach to citizens in your countries? You mentioned already something, but now in Bulgaria, in Hungary and Belgium, how do you, besides the EU-funded projects, bring EU closer to your citizens? We heard in schools, very important. But what else can be done that Europe is really tangible for our citizens, all generations? We shouldn't forget the pensioners, the students, the pupils, the future voters. So what are your other recipes and strategies, Mr. Novakov?
I know that the usual way and the usual point of view that many people use for cohesion policies, there is a group of member states who are paying, net payers, and there is a group of member states, net beneficiaries, who received. On the surface, this is more or less correct. Almost 80% of the public investments in Bulgaria are funded by the European Union. So obviously, at some point in the past, we paid at least 4 times less than we received. But this is only on the surface. When you visit a given project, for instance, a high-speed railway, it's connecting, let's say, the Black Sea and Sofia, 100% on Bulgarian soil, 100% servicing Bulgarian citizens and companies. And you see, this is for the benefit of the Bulgarian nation. But when you look deeper, what kind of trains do you think are traveling on top of that line? German or French? That's it. So at least 50% of that project goes back to the countries who pay for it. Then you go to the hospital. Of course, it's located in a Bulgarian city, serving Bulgarian citizens. Well, this is 100% for Bulgarian benefit. Then you go inside and see that all the medical equipment inside is produced in Netherlands by a Dutch company. Well, at least 0.5% of this project goes back to the country who pay. So it's like net winners everywhere, not payers and net beneficiaries. This is one thing. Another is that having so many European projects and then somehow losing the possibility to explain people how beneficial that is for our society, it's shame. It's shame because I know how much Bulgaria developed for the past 15 years after joining European Union. And now there is voices saying, but we are the poorest nation in Europe. Yes, comparing with Belgium and Germany. If we are outside, we say we are moderate, we're doing well, comparing with Belarus.
Yeah.
Yes? And Azerbaijan. So it's about to whom you compare. And I think the only thing that makes sense is to compare with yourself past year. So where we have been 2010, where we are now. So purely European funds are something which helps us a lot. So I don't think that the current legislation towards visibility and promotion works. Because you have to have the flag somewhere and a big boring billboard saying that this is funded by this priority access, by this operational program, co-funded but by this, by that, by... So an average person saying, excuse me, what? When you see someone on the TV staying like this, talking about coherent approach, about priority access on the cohesion policy, it's looking and listening and say, excuse me, what? What are you talking about? So when you go outside and say, here is the thing. We need a bridge. We need a tunnel. We need a new school. All of them funded by European Union. This is how we bring people who fled our country back. Completely understandable. This is how you tackle propaganda. Because those who are against the European Union are very good on propaganda. And when you talk like this, you are so easy victim to let people believe in a I'm investing a lot of efforts at the moment to behave well, but those people are talking complete lies, and sometimes general public believes in that. Now you see a person using TikTok saying that germs are not existing because you cannot see it. This is very understandable thing. It's pure lie, but it's very understandable. And you have to explain that there is a micro world here and you need a device to see it. And these little things that you cannot see go inside your body and makes you sick. And it's boring. And that guy is explaining very understandable. So we have to be better in the way we communicate.
You explained it very well, Mr. Novakov. Finally, the last question to all of you who would like to respond. So what would be your formula, your motto for the next weeks, month in REGI committee, which are really challenging? What will you be fighting for, and how will you explain and communicate this new engagement in REGI for all the projects which can create more visibility and results and the success of EU among EU citizens? So what are the challenges ahead, shortly? What is your concrete proposal, and what is your vision for REGI for the future? Mrs. Gerzsenyi.
Not so easy to put it briefly, but for me, at all European level, I think should be that we serve the people. Being now a politician, but I think we have similar objectives as if we were civil servants, and the origin of the word is coming from serving the public interest. So I would start from there and bringing cohesion policy as close as possible to people, to local communities, to regional and local authorities, to increase their own responsibility and ownership, to strengthen the partnership with them, so to make it as tangible as possible. We always talk about simplification here. It's now a key word. I think that's also a very important goal, but it's difficult to define how to find the right balance. Flexibility, another key word, to be able to adapt to different circumstances. And if I can come more concretely to Hungary and to country-specific level, then of course my first objective would be to bring home to money and to make it accessible to people who deserve it. And not only those who are supporters and followers of the TISA party, but to all Hungarians. That's our most important objective for the coming years.
Thank you, Mrs. Gerzsenyi. And Mr. Arimont, what would be your...
In order to get cohesion money functioning, you have to respect the rule of law in the states. So the example shows exactly what that means in concrete when the rule of law is not respected. So, but to come back to your question, I think our first role is to defend cohesion policy as an investment instrument. This is a quite smart and beautiful instrument to help regions, cities, local communities to get better. So we should keep this with the principles of cohesion policy that we know, partnership principle, co-financing rates. We should keep this because it's a good investment program. The figures shows it, that it's good, that it works, because in all the members that joined the European Union 30 years ago, the GDP raised in a spectacular way. So it's a good investment program. And what we must absolutely do is, and to have a good argument towards member states who are not so keen to defend it, it must be less complicated, more flexible, but less complicated. We are doing controls for each cent 4 or 5 times. The same cent is controlled 4 or 5 times. People who are in the authorities to manage those projects, people who are coming from the ground who are doing those projects, are crazy about those controls. So we should care about this. We should hear the voices when they say, do it less complicated. If we do that, I think that we have a good chance that cohesion policy will still be the main program, the main budget line of the European Union, because it's important to have it, and because with that program, member states work together. This is highly important, and we should never forget this.
Thank you for this very important message. The final sentence to our spokesperson of the EPP in the EPP REGI committee. Mr. Novakov, your conclusion, how are we going to fight for cohesion?
The cohesion policy should fight for itself. We are here to defend and support this process. I believe that everybody who is trying to water down and diminish the importance of cohesion policy will remember that somebody very wise in the past, the founding fathers of this union, make in a such way our treaties of functioning in the European Union that cohesion policy is inside. And this is for good reason. You cannot be rich with a poor neighbor.
Exactly.
Ring-fencing regions, ring-fencing countries had led in the past for a horrible experience. We are not going in this direction anymore. Europe, in order to be competitive to US, to China, to Brazil, and these big and powerful economies, should stay together. In order to stay together, you need EU solidarity. When it rains a lot, when there is wildfires, or when there is a region, because of its past, in some cases communism, still struggle with some issues. If you support those people when they need it most, then we'll prevail and go strong together as a family.
Thank you. With these words, I would like to finish that 6 years ago, Lambert van Nistelrooy, your Dutch former MEP colleague, was speaking about the initiative Let the Stars Shine. It was an exhibition in European Parliament presenting 40 projects from 9 member states, which were shown as examples of thousands of projects funded by EU. Projects that nobody talks about, but we will change that and we will make them visible again, like in the last mandate we were doing in Slovenia, Croatia, Spain, Portugal and Romania, like here in our TV program we will present with you, our MEPs, your work, your results for the benefit of our citizens and our regions. So special thanks to our guests, Andrey Novakov, MEP from Bulgaria, spokesperson of the EPP group in the REGI committee, Gabriella Gerzsenyi, MEP from Hungary and vice chair of the Regional Development Committee, and Pascal Arimont, MEP from Belgium, specialist on Interreg, cross-border and other REGI issues. All members are from the European People's Party in the European Parliament. Many thanks to our technicians and sound engineers behind the cameras. I'm Alen Legovic. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget, let our cohesion thrive and shine.